Welcome to a chilling, untold story, the Loudun possession, where faith, power, and fear collide to create a dark supernatural tragedy. A brilliant priest, a haunted convent, and mysterious phenomena that shook an entire town to its core. What really happened behind those cold walls? Did demons truly exist, or was this just a bloody spectacle of power and politics? Join us as we uncover the mystery behind one of Europe's most infamous possession cases of the 17th century, where the line between truth and madness is thinner than a breath. In 1632, France was plunged into a period of deep chaos and instability as the plague swept across many regions, spreading fear and death. The town of Loudun, located in western France, was among the hardest hit. The epidemic raged violently, claiming the lives of about 25% of the town's population in a short time. A grim atmosphere prevailed: deserted streets, shuttered homes, and the constant, oppressive presence of death loomed over the skies of Loudun. Amidst this backdrop, the newly established Ursuline convent became a peculiar exception. This convent was home to 17 young nuns, most of whom came from noble or wealthy families. Strangely, while the plague showed no mercy elsewhere, the Ursuline convent remained inexplicably untouched. Not a single nun fell ill, and life inside the convent continued with regularity, seemingly detached from the chaos outside. This strange serenity began to raise questions. Some saw it as divine protection, that the nuns were under God's special care. However, in an era fueled by superstition, gossip, and suspicion, others viewed this phenomenon as unnatural, even ominous. The stark contrast between the death outside and the calm within the convent created a dramatic setting, where religious faith, political power, and fear of the supernatural would soon collide, setting the stage for a series of dark events that would engulf Loudun in the months to come. At the beginning of September 1632, the peaceful atmosphere within the Ursuline convent in Loudun was suddenly disrupted by strange, unexplainable occurrences. The young nuns, accustomed to a cloistered life of strict discipline and prayer, began to report supernatural experiences that soon cast the entire convent into fear. The events started sporadically and vaguely. A few nuns claimed they had seen shadowy figures drifting through the corridors at night, unclear forms that appeared and vanished as if watching from afar. Within days, the reports became more alarming. One nun described seeing a floating black orb, emitting a cold, otherworldly glow. Another, visibly terrified, recounted a skeletal figure moving toward her in the darkness, making chilling clicking sounds with every step. But what was most frightening wasn't just what they saw, it was what they felt. Many nuns spoke of being attacked by invisible forces, hands grabbing their throats, pulling their hair, or shoving them onto the cold stone floor. Unexplained chills and shudders coursed through their bodies. Soon, these psychological effects turned into physical manifestations. The nuns began to convulse violently, twisting their bodies into unnatural positions, sometimes forming postures that defied contemporary understanding. They screamed in unfamiliar voices and even spoke languages they had never learned. Some developed swollen, blackened tongues that left them unable to speak, a condition seen at the time as a sign of possession or a demonic curse. Initially, the priests in the convent tried to interpret the events as spiritual tests or psychological effects of a confined life. But as the symptoms spread rapidly and intensified among the nuns, those explanations no longer sufficed. Fear spread across the town, fueled by growing rumors of demonic possession and witchcraft whispered from house to house. As the supernatural phenomena at the Ursuline convent grew intense and uncontrollable, local religious authorities began to suspect that these were no longer mere psychological episodes, but signs of an evil force, specifically demonic interference. Fear within the convent quickly escalated into mass hysteria as the nuns began screaming during prayers, speaking in strange tongues, and exhibiting behaviors believed to be controlled by supernatural powers. Due to the worsening situation, priests were summoned to investigate and conduct traditional Catholic exorcisms. Initially carried out quietly within the convent, the exorcisms grew more intense. Nuns convulsed when crosses were brought near and shouted the names of demonic beings, making it impossible to keep the matter secret. The entire town of Loudun soon focused its attention on the convent, and rumors of a true demonic possession spread widely. Among the afflicted nuns, the most prominent was Mother Superior Jeanne d'Anges. She was not only the spiritual leader of the convent, but also exhibited the most violent and unusual symptoms. Jeanne claimed to be possessed not by a single demon, but by multiple entities. According to her, these included infamous medieval Christian figures such as Asmodeus, symbolizing lust, Leviathan, representing rebellion and chaos, and Zabulon, a lesser-known but malevolent being. Jeanne d'Anges even described in detail how the demons occupied her body, whispered horrific words into her ears, and forced her to commit blasphemies. Her testimony was carefully recorded by clergy and became crucial evidence in subsequent exorcisms. Her claims transformed the case from a purely religious matter into a political event, where faith, power, and fear of demons were manipulated as tools of control and influence. Amid the spiritual turmoil engulfing the Ursuline convent, the exorcisms triggered serious accusations. In a state believed to be demonically possessed, some nuns suddenly pointed to a single individual as the culprit behind the supernatural events, Father Urbain Grandier. Grandier was no stranger in Loudun. An educated, charismatic, and eloquent priest, he was admired for his intellect and preaching skills. However, his prominence earned him many enemies, both among the clergy and the nobility. He was considered arrogant, often criticized those in power, and openly expressed personal views on religious and political matters, a dangerous stance in 17th century France, tightly controlled by the church and monarchy. His greatest scandal was the accusation that he impregnated a young woman from a noble family, a serious violation of clerical celibacy. Moreover, he had openly insulted the regional bishop, who later became one of France's most powerful figures, Cardinal Richelieu. Grandier also engaged in sensitive political debates, making him a thorn in the side of local and central authorities. When the possessed nuns uniformly accused Grandier of using witchcraft to cause the horrors at the convent, his existing enemies seized the opportunity. Accusing a priest of witchcraft was extraordinarily serious, not only a religious crime, but a betrayal of society and God. The nuns' accusations, viewed as coming from victims, became the perfect tool for hostile forces to eliminate Grandier's influence, turning him from a respected priest into a defendant in a trial marked by politics, religion, and personal vendettas. In August 1634, Father Urbain Grandier was put on trial in what was ostensibly a justice process, but was in reality a politically and religiously motivated witch hunt. The charges against him, prepared in advance, included a contract allegedly signed between Grandier and the devil. This contract was supposed to prove his complicity with demonic forces behind the Ursuline convent's supernatural events. However, this document was claimed to be forged, created solely to convict Grandier. Testimonies and evidence showed signs of fabrication, but this did not stop the trial from proceeding as planned. Throughout the trial, Grandier maintained his innocence, insisting he had no involvement in the strange events at the convent and that the accusations were false. His pleas for justice were ignored. Instead, he was subjected to brutal torture to force a confession. The methods were savage. Needles were thrust into his testicles, and his feet were crushed with heated iron devices. Despite excruciating pain, he steadfastly refused to admit guilt, claiming he was innocent. Nevertheless, Grandier's resistance was not enough to save him from a tragic fate. After the trial, Despite lacking solid evidence, he was sentenced to death. On August 18, 1634, he was burned alive before a crowd of about 6,000 people. Grandier's death was not only punishment for him, but also a warning to anyone who dared challenge the church's authority and the political powers behind it. This tragic end became a significant part of the Loudun demonic possession story, leaving a historical mark on the brutality of witch and demonic possession trials in the early modern era. After the tragic death of Father Urbain Grandier, many believed that all supernatural disturbances at the Ursuline convent would come to an end. Grandier, accused of being a witch and the cause of the demonic phenomena, had been punished by the holy fire of justice. However, the reality was completely the opposite. The bizarre events not only failed to subside, but worsened and spread beyond the convent's walls. Following the execution, some priests involved in the trial and exorcisms began reporting signs of demonic possession themselves, from relentless nightmares and feelings of being watched to strange occurrences like household items suddenly moving on their own. Many fell into panic and exhaustion, believing that Grandier's death had not entirely eradicated the influence of the evil forces. In this context, Jeanne des Anges, the Mother Superior of the Ursuline convent, once central to accusing Grandier, rose to prominence more than ever. She claimed that although Grandier was dead, she continued to battle the remaining demons within her body. Jeanne insisted that the presence of evil had not ceased and that God was testing her faith. Seizing the wave of public and church attention, Jeanne began touring across France. During her public appearances, she openly displayed holy marks, wounds on her hands believed to be evidence of her sharing in Christ's suffering. Jeanne's speeches and divine manifestations quickly drew thousands of curious spectators, including some of the country's most powerful figures at the time, such as Cardinal Richelieu and even King Louis XIII. From a nun accused of demonic possession, Jeanne des Anges transformed herself into a symbol of faith and miracles, a sacred image carefully crafted in an era full of superstition, politics, and ruthless witch hunts. Although the Loudun possession case became one of the most notable witch hunting events in European history, the true cause of the phenomena remains a controversial question today. Many historians, psychologists, and religious scholars have proposed various theories and attempts to explain what really happened at the Ursuline convent in the 1630s. One common hypothesis suggests that the possession was the result of collective hallucinations and mental disorders, especially within a tense and unstable social context. The harsh convent life, isolation, and persistent fear of the plague, which had claimed hundreds of lives in Loudun, likely placed enormous psychological pressure on the young nuns. Under such conditions, symptoms like convulsions, strange speech, and hallucinations may have been natural psychological responses to trauma, but were interpreted through the religious and superstitious lens of the time. Others suspect that the supernatural phenomena were exaggerated or deliberately staged to serve political and personal agendas. Jeanne des Anges, the main accuser who later gained fame and influence, suggests the possibility that the case was exploited as a tool to eliminate Urbain Grandier, a priest whose views conflicted with religious authorities and government powers. Powerful figures, including Cardinal Richelieu, may also have used the event to strengthen their prestige in combating heresy. However, despite all modern analysis, no conclusive evidence reveals the true cause behind the incident. The Loudun possession remains suspended on the fragile boundary between superstition, politics, and phenomena beyond rational explanation. The story of the Loudun demonic possession is not merely a strange episode in European religious history, but a profound reflection of the superstition, fear, and drama of the 17th century. In an era when the lines between religion, politics, and human psychology were unclear, any unusual event could be attributed to demonic activity, and anyone, even a priest, could become a victim if they displeased powerful forces. The story also serves as a warning about the severe consequences when fear and fanaticism override reason. From unusual behaviors within a secluded convent, the affair quickly escalated into a politically charged witch hunt, trial, and execution. Grandier's burning did not only end a life, but also marked how society at the time punished anyone suspected of collaborating with the devil. Loudun reminds us that when humans become entangled in the whirlwinds of superstition and power, truth and justice can easily be consumed by the flames alongside cries of, "Exorcise the devil."